Today, we are tabling a final report, an investigation into a crisis at the very heart of our educational system. The findings, as you will see, are conclusive, and they paint a very stark picture. Let's begin. We started with the questions that I'm sure keep so many of us up at night, the questions that prompted this entire investigation. Why is it that our students, who are meant to be our future, seem to lack the simple courage of initiative? Why do they struggle to call right right and wrong wrong? And maybe the most urgent question of all, why are they so deeply overwhelmed by stress and depression? Well, after an exhaustive analysis, the findings of this report are, frankly, unequivocal. These issues are not isolated incidents, they're not individual failings, they are symptoms. Symptoms of a deep, foundational, and systemic failure. And that failure originates in one place, our classrooms. So in this first section, we're going to map the architecture of this failure. We're going to break down piece by piece exactly how the system is failing our students. Our first finding is perhaps the most damning. The very methods we use to teach are a primary cause of the problem. You see, instead of fostering curiosity, instead of building an internal moral compass, the current system seems almost perfectly designed to do the opposite. It actively extinguishes a student's initiative and their innate ability to know right from wrong. In short, it teaches conformity over courage. And this leads to a devastating psychological consequence. The system forces a painful choice on our students. They often know the truth, they can see what is wrong. But they learn very quickly that silence is safer than speaking up. And this creates a profound internal conflict, a quiet, lingering guilt that slowly but surely erodes their sense of self-worth.
Well, a moral vacuum doesn't stay empty for long. When a student's own internal compass is broken, or at least discouraged, they don't just go without one. No, they start looking outward for direction. They become disproportionately impressed by external social constructs, by job titles, by luxury brands, by social media clout, because they've been taught day in and day out not to trust their own inner voice.
This process causes a very specific kind of injury. We're identifying it in this report as relationship trauma. And what is that? It's the deep psychological wound, the distress that's caused when a person consistently prioritizes what society expects of them over their own internal sense of truth. It's a trauma born from that constant, grinding conflict between who you really are and who the world is telling you that you should be.
And let's be clear, this trauma isn't just a theory. The data bears it out. Just look. This sharp, undeniable global rise in student anxiety, depression, and stress, it correlates directly with this systemic breakdown. We are, quite literally, creating the conditions for this mental health crisis within our own school walls.
So here you can see the whole self-perpetuating vicious cycle in action. It all starts with step one, a pedagogy, a way of teaching that demands conformity. This naturally leads to step two, where students are forced to suppress their own truth. This creates that moral vacuum, which leads to step three, a desperate search for external validation. And that search ultimately causes the internal trauma we've been talking about, which only makes them more dependent on the very system that's causing all the harm in the first place.
And this right here is the final verdict. On one side, you have the ideal of education, fostering authentic inquiry, a place where students develop a strong internal compass through open, honest dialogue. And on the other side, you have the reality that this report has uncovered, a culture of guilty silence, driven by fear and a desperate reliance on hollow, external standards. The gap between these two, well, that's the measure of our failure.
But this report is not just an indictment. It's not enough to simply condemn the problem. This is also a blueprint for change. So Section 2 lays out the constructive alternatives that can and must lead us forward.
The solution here demands a complete paradigm shift. It's not about small tweaks. Instead of conformity, we need teaching models built on authentic, critical inquiry. Instead of forced silence, we need to create classrooms that actively encourage moral courage. And to fight back against the trauma, we have to build learning environments where psychological safety is the #1 priority. That means creating spaces where it is safe to be wrong, safe to ask the hard questions, and safe to challenge the status quo without fear. Of course, a blueprint is useless without builders, and that brings us to Section 3, the mandate for our educators. These are the people on the front lines who have the power to truly bring this change to life. To execute this blueprint, every single educator must master 3 core skills. Number 1, they must be able to cultivate true psychological safety, where students feel secure enough to be vulnerable. Number 2, They must be willing to model moral courage themselves, to show students what it looks like to stand for what's right. And number 3, they need the skill to facilitate authentic, unscripted dialogue, not just to recite a curriculum, but to explore ideas with their students.
And let me be perfectly clear, these skills are not optional add-ons. They're not nice-to-haves. They are the absolute foundation of an educational system that finally begins to heal instead of harm. This is the antidote to the trauma we've uncovered, and it is the only way forward if we want to build resilient, thoughtful, and courageous human beings.
So we conclude this report with the evidence laid bare and a blueprint for change in hand. The system as it stands is failing our children. It is creating trauma where it should be fostering growth. We know how to fix this. We have the plan. The only question that remains is a challenge to every single one of us. Who will have the courage to build it?